It's the Spin Market Report. Here's your host, Peter Stockdale.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Sitting down with Marcie Boerner. You are the COO of Webster Calhoun Cooperative Telephone Association, or as we sometimes call it, WCCTA.
Yes.
Do you guys go by that abbreviation?
A lot of times it's just WebCal.
Oh, I like that. I
Yeah.
actually like that more. I might have to write that down. So we're sitting down here talking with you. You've actually done a lot of expansion and a lot of upgrading to what is the fiber in around the Fort Dodge area, Webster County. We actually pulled up a map over here so we can kind of talk about it a little bit beforehand. But I do want to, kind of start off on the basics of like the questions that I have for you. Like, you were set up in 1954 as WCCTA. Like, what makes you guys like a cooperative for people that might not understand like what a cooperative is?
Mm-hmm. So it's funny how history can kind of repeat itself a little bit. Okay, so early on in 1902 is when Gowrie actually started their own telephone company. So, back at that time, that was, the communication way to communicate. So they did it themselves, put the telephone company together, and then they decided that rather than them do it, they'll just sell it to another company. Another company, they get larger, they get larger, they get larger. Pretty soon they found that their service was not being maintained, it was not being upgraded, and it was degrading quite a bit. The Depression hit, and just, all sorts of things were going wrong. And they were really frustrated. So it was one of those things where they were back to the idea of, well, let's do it ourselves. And at that point of time, the Rural Electrification Act came out. And so funding was available for a lot of those companies where they were able to borrow the money to do this. And so all of those pieces came together. And in 1954, then they incorporated as a cooperative. And they started out with Gowrie. And from there, I think they did Kinerum and Summers, and they brought in, I think it was Barnum and Clare. And then it just continued to grow from there, so that the cooperative actually is 16 communities throughout Webster and Calhoun counties.
There you go. That makes sense.
Yes. But it really is that, to me, it's that rural idea of, okay, we're frustrated and we need help. Something needs to change. We're just going to do it ourselves.
Yeah. I
feel like that's such a small town thing.
Yes, exactly.
Mentality, like, we're not going to trust the big city people. We're going to just do it ourselves, get our hands dirty type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. You brought up a good point too. It's like they started a phone company. It eventually got sold out, got to a company that got so big that they couldn't maintain it. It's that whole, I'm not pointing fingers at any companies. It's kind of like the Rome concept. It got so big, it just couldn't maintain itself, and it kind of collapsed in on itself, and they were right back to where they started.
Yep.
Why did they choose a cooperative? Just so they didn't end up going back the same route they went down before?
So the idea of a cooperative is it's owned by its members.
Okay.
So when you purchase service through the cooperative, then you're a member. At least that's the way we have it set up for our original 16 communities. We can get into more of the details on that later. But the other idea behind that is you vote to create your board of directors. So it's not somebody else is running the company. We, as the people who are using the service, are running the company.
I like that. People that actually are involved in use. And it makes so much sense, I guess, just from like where I'm sitting now. I'm sure there would be situations where it might be better not to have that. But like for a small town and surrounding areas, like it totally makes sense to have anybody who's actually using the service be the people that are kind of like in charge of everything, or they're in charge of saying who's in charge of it, at least,
They have a say in what happens.
Yes, yes. And, you're kind of right in the sense that, with a telephone company, it's like, well, that doesn't sound like it would be an obvious choice for a cooperative. Around here, we see so many of the grain cooperatives. But if you look nationwide, you could see all sorts of cooperatives. The rural electric cooperatives, the RECs.
Yeah, REC.
Yeah, so they do it with electricity. They do it with telephone and communications. They do it with, I've seen, grocery stores.
Grocery stores was one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And now that you mentioned, a lot of those are kind of in the more rural areas, but that also makes sense because, like, if if somebody in Des Moines or some company in Des Moines runs everything, what are the chances they're going to go 2 hours away to service something or whatever, or how good is their reach going to be when they have to get that far?
Well, then it's like it's almost staying in the community and continually like almost recirculating. Like it's continually coming back to the community, and the community has a say in what goes on. And it's definitely that small town mindset, I guess, I think about.
Yes. And that's the way I feel like with us being, I always say that we're a local company, and it's like, well, what do you mean by a local company? It means that if I go to the grocery store, I'm going to run into people that I provide service to. We try to be active in the communities and provide sponsorships to the baseball team, or this is parade season, so we're trying to be in as many of the parades as we can, just to, whether it's having a truck with our logo on it or taking a float, whatever we can do to be present in that community, because we are part of that community. And our employees are from all over. Our headquarters is in Gowrie, but our employees come from all over the area as well.
Yeah. I think that's somewhere on the list down there. I want to actually just touch on that. So the employees being from here is one of those nice things where you don't have to outsource for your tech and then hope that maybe somebody from Minneapolis comes down and does the job right or something like that, or it's people you actually know. I think that's got to be a benefit, right? It
is. And, we do have vendors or consultants and things like that we can reach out to, and we can work with them to find solutions, or, the products that we're using or the equipment we're using, they have resources, so we can use those. But it's really nice having the people right here because they know the area, they know where the fiber is. We do our own locating. Because our fiber is buried in the ground, it's really important that we have to keep track of that. We don't want somebody just digging through and cutting a fiber because, we want to protect it. That's what's going to keep it, the longevity of the fiber.
Yeah. Absolutely. What are some other benefits we have for like just having a local cooperative telecommunication service? Like one of the things I wrote down was I had seen that you do like allocation notices and or capital credits. Can you explain something like that? Because I think that, if I'm not mistaken, might be a benefit.
Yes, it is. So the idea behind the cooperative is if there's money that's made, it's not going back to, whoever's, running it type of thing. It goes back to the members of the cooperative. So if there is a revenue at the end of the year, once they figure all of the, the audit, the taxes, all that kind of stuff, if there's revenue at the end of it, then that gets allocated back to the membership. That doesn't mean they get the money back right away, but it's kind of like set aside with their name on it.
Okay.
And so each year we'll send out a little notice, allocation notice to our members saying, hey, in 2024, this is the amount of business that we did. And it can get kind of confusing sometimes because Webster Calhoun is they do a lot of outside investments as well. And so sometimes people will be like, gosh, I got more money back or more allocated than what I spent with it. Well, the company is not all just about the $75 that you pay for internet or, the TV service, things like that. There's a lot more that goes into that. It's a little bit bigger, broader company than that. So at the end of the year, when there's money left over or made positive, we always want it to be a positive, right?
Yes,
sometimes, but we want it to be positive at the end of the year. It goes back to the members as allocated. And then later in the year, that board of directors that I talked about earlier, and the importance of that is they're the ones who are going to look at the financials. They're going to look at the cash that they have on hand and say, how are we sitting here? Can we give some of this money back to our members? And so I want to say last year we gave out like $1.2 million to our members.
Wow.
And, you spread that across, I want to say there was, I'm guessing here maybe around 3,000 members, but, and each one is different because one person may just have internet with us. Somebody else might have multiple services with us. Yeah. So not everybody gets the same amount. But then, our members really appreciate when the checks go out in the mail and all of a sudden it's like, surprise, we got some money. Yay. What are we going to do with it? So, because it's not guaranteed. It's something that the board does review every year because their number one priority is to make sure that the cooperative is healthy as a company, as a corporation, that it's running the way it's supposed to be done. They want to make sure that they're maintaining. I talked about investments. Sometimes they're taking that money and investing it back into other things for future to have that solid company in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like there's so many benefits. We could probably just sit here and just discuss like different benefits all day long of having a co-op. I mean, I maybe even think like sometimes there's banks that are co-ops to an extent. I mean, like there's all sorts of co-op, and I mean every single one of them has their benefits. And I do want to kind of like just keep it going here a little bit. Like, so you started with phone services,
right?
But it's not like that's all you do. I cruised around your guys' website and found a bunch of services you guys provide. Can you want to touch on base on any of those? Or
Sure. So the other piece of being a cooperative, I mean, there's the benefits to it, but I'm going to say the core benefit, the very main benefit, is the quality and the reliable service, because that's our priority. That's what all the members want. And so when I started with the cooperative, it was just the voice service. And at that time, we were just getting into dial-up, which for us,
oh my gosh,
when internet started, you used a phone line to do that. So there were a lot of people that got a second phone line so that it was just their internet when they were able to use the internet. I
can hear that like screechy noise. As soon as you said dial up, that's all I could think about.
Yeah.
I remember unplugging the house phone to plug in the computer.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Instead of doing that, just bring in another phone line.
Yep. So they brought in the phone line, they did that. And then I remember when we upgraded to DSL,
Yes.
256K.
Yep.
You know, that was speedy. That was.
Well, I'm a little bit older than everybody else here, so I understand. I'm in. I get it. Trust me. Oh.
Yep. But that was about the time that we started putting in the fiber too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so copper has the ability to do these same things in higher speeds, internet and things like that. But where we run into it, especially in the rural areas that we were talking about earlier, copper lines have limitations when it comes to distance.
Yes.
Where fiber does not. You can do long runs of fiber and still have that speed of light. So there's that fast connection there. So that's about the time we started putting in the fiber. And the benefit of fiber is as technology changes and advances, we can do that as well. And so we can change out electronics within our central office or at the home, and even add different services to that. So we have a fiber network ring around our network. And that's when we went from telephone, started adding the internet, and then we even added IPTV, or digital television, because it was going over the fiber there. And now as we continue to change and evolve, we can do streaming capabilities. You know, we've got the speeds for the internet just keep getting higher and higher, faster and faster as things are going along. You know, you don't think that it changes as fast as it does, but it really does. You know, I remember when we became gig certified, and having gigabit service was a big deal. And now, you know, we're getting requests for 10 gig services at particular businesses. You know, not everybody needs that, but there are occasions for that use is out there.
Yeah. I mean, I like how you kind of laid it all out. It's just like it started out as this, and this was enough, and then we needed more, so we went to this, and then we needed more, and we went to this, and it's all just based on the supply and demand. You know, your supply meets the demand of the customers, which are also, as a co-op, the owners. So it's kind of like we have to listen, and we're going to, and we need to upgrade with the rest of the world, and here we go. And
it's crazy that you guys started already putting in fiber, and like it feels like just recently that was just all of a sudden feels like it's kind of taken over. Right. So it's kind of crazy to me because I just thought it was like a brand new thing that came out maybe like 2 years ago. And now, like that's just, I had no idea. That's an interesting thing I just learned. So,
and one of the interesting things that we did, like I said, we have 16 exchanges, 16 communities that we provide service to. And we basically replaced our copper. It was to the point where it was, we talk about maintenance, right? and we were either going to have to put more copper in, or we were going to have to do something because we needed to upgrade our network. And at that time, fiber was kind of coming along, and we took, I want to say, a good 10 years to do that. Overall 16. We didn't do them all at once. We did 2 or 3 exchanges at a time, and I want to say we started around 2002, and we finished in 2011.
Wow.
That's so fun.
So how, like, because you said copper needed to be replaced, how does that work with like fiber and stuff? Does it have like the same type of like is it fragile? Is that the word I want to
You
use?
think of like a lifespan?
Yeah, kind of like how quickly do you have to replace it? Or is it, where you don't have to go in and replace it?
So I'm not sure about the copper side of things, but I know from a fiber perspective, they say the lifespan of that can be 30 to 40 years.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
So-
that makes. I mean, that's got to make you at least a little bit happy because you know that by then there's probably gonna be something else maybe coming along and
The next level of fiber.
the next level. Yeah.
Right. Well, right now they still have not found the end of fiber.
Oh wow.
So they just keep finding ways to put more capacity on it, more and more and more.
Wow.
I think, well, I can't quote any statistics because I can't remember any of them, but I mean, it's really astounding when you think of one single strand of fiber, which is about this, like a hair.
Yeah.
And like I said, it travels at the speed of light. And what you can do with that is it's amazing just by having that infrastructure in the ground. So
Is it okay? Because I had learned a little bit about fiber from a different internet provider, and they had talked about that it's actually easier for you guys to like maintain and control. Like, so if one house, if it's hooked up and stuff, and maybe 1 month they just decide we don't want to pay for internet through you guys, that it's just like a quick like flip of a switch almost.
to a certain degree, yes. And that was one of the things that comes in on the backside of what we do, and some of our systems that,
Or like, even if it like like for some reason, if one area were to have their line cut, that somehow with the way you guys have it passed out, that it can easily just be transferred from a different area and you still get internet type of thing.
Yep. We do have a redundant ring.
Redundancy. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And we have redundancy to our providers as well. So,
There's one situation where redundancy is a good thing. I mean, I only know some of these terms because I took networking classes when I was in high school, and I
Right.
did some of the Cisco stuff, which I think we were talking about, like the impedance or like the degradation of the quality of the copper being is just like it can't travel very far. It starts taking on noise from outside, and it
Right.
just loses its quality. And
yep.
so, back to the question, I guess. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt it, but
But like, say for example, you are doing something with your internet, and you're like, "Hey, I need to change the speed on it." Yeah, we can change that speed.
Yeah, that was
immediately.
part of it too.
Oh,
that I
wow.
learned.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like just a really easy for you, but it's also easier for your
The staff, yes.
everybody.
that's a good point. So it's not just better for the customer. It's not like the customers wanted it and like, all right, fine, we'll do it. It ended up
Right.
being beneficial for everybody.
They don't have to wait 2 to 3 business days for people to come out and do something. It's
Right.
just oh, hey, we're gonna go type in something. Who knows? Click a button.
Yeah. Exactly.
Easy fix.
Exactly. Yep.
That's awesome.
So this is I would call your guys' co-op maybe like a mid-sized company. I wouldn't say you're like a super mega huge company, but you're definitely not a small company.
Right.
What are the
right.
benefits of having this mid-sized company? I think like one of the things I had down was you have like technicians that work on hand for you would probably be like one of the things I guess I'd kind of thought of. But like, are there any other benefits that maybe we didn't touch on already?
The thing that I enjoy about being a mid-sized company is that we do have enough staff that if there's a company out there that just has a single exchange, they might have 2 people in the office, so they can't both be gone, or, how do you do lunch? How do you just close for the, lunch hour? I mean, and every company runs it differently, whether it's a private company or a cooperative or something like that, the size can really impact how you do your day-to-day stuff. So,
Yeah.
And like I said too, we do our own locating because we want to keep that fiber safe. And so we have the ability to do that with our own staff.
This might sound ignorant on my end, but is that like all through like Iowa One Call? If someone's going to dig and they call, they'll know where everything's at too, or at least they'll be able to call you and you'll be able to tell them where it's at.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a great plug for Iowa One Call, because if you're digging anything, now like I said, we do have buried fiber. Not everybody buries it. Sometimes they'll put it on the poles and things like that. But for us, we feel it's better and it's more secure in the ground. And so if somebody's digging something, they need to call Iowa One Call. And the reason for that is Iowa One Call is a free service for them, and they will contact everyone. They'll look at your address and they'll say, oh, you have this provider for electric, you have this provider for gas, you have this provider for communications, and anything else. They call all of them for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then they contact the companies to come in and make sure that it's all located.
You know, that actually brings up a good point. I didn't really think about it until literally like a handful of years ago that like utility services don't overlap very often. Almost at all. I mean, it happens sometimes, but it makes sense that there's not like, you know, Bob's water service and Steve's water service and Mackenzie's water service. There'd be like 400 lanes of pipes running around everywhere. And you'd be like, well, I don't want this one. I want the other one. And they'd have to run new piping to everywhere.
No, they just have 3 different pipes.
Right?
They just flip a switch.
Yep. So you do see that a lot. I'm going to use the electric companies as that. They have their boundaries. And for a number of years, as a phone provider, we had our boundaries. So that's why we were 16 communities for a really long time. But as things are changing from not really being the phone provider anymore, we're the internet provider. And so the federal government comes out with some acts and things like that really, I want to say it was the Communications Act of like 92. And the idea behind that was they want to promote competition. So we want to have that competition because it's good for the customers to have that overlap. And that's all great, except it's expensive to do that. So, for example, as we started expanding, a good example of that is we went into Calhoun County and we built competitively into Manson, Rockwell City, Lake City, and Laurelville. But we only did the towns. We only did the city because we were looking at the population to see if that could provide, did it make sense for the investment that we were going to have to put into that. Same thing with the rural area of Fort Dodge. Everybody's like, oh, can you just come in here and do that? And we're like, well, we'd like to, but it's expensive. And is that really the best use of our dollars to do that?
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Especially in the rural areas. You know, you think of a block, the block you live on, how many houses are on that block? You think of a mile in the country, how many houses are on that mile?
Makes sense.
So that's the difference between the city and the rural areas. It's really expensive in the rural areas. And so all along we were like, well, if we could get some funding help for that. And in the rural Fort Dodge area, it turns out that's exactly what happened for us. We ended up applying for the OCIO, which is now the all these acronyms are they're full of acronyms, but they started putting out this notice of funding availability, a NOFA, and they had started at 1, and now they're up to 8. They've awarded 8 different NOFAs for that. So we applied for a few of them. We did get a NOFA 6 to do part of the area in rural Fort Dodge. And we're like frustrated because it was based on census blocks. And we were frustrated because we were going to have to skip this customer to go to this customer. That just didn't really make a lot of sense. And NOFA 7 came out, and then NOFA 8 came out. We applied for that one again. And it was basically filling in the gaps of all of those that we were frustrated with. And then there were also some locations that were considered funded or considered. In some of the funding applications, as long as you had 25 meg down and 3 meg up, you were served.
Okay.
So I think a lot of times people don't understand what their speed is or what that means. But for example, with doing NOFA 8, we had to be able to provide any of the customers' locations that we went to that it's going to be 100 by 100 meg symmetrical.
100 down, 100 up.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Those are from the federal side. Those are what they're looking at the minimums. Of course, as a fiber provider, we're like, well, you can make that higher. You can, because we can go 500 meg symmetrical. We can do a gig symmetrical. What do you need? We can do it. And so they're trying to, even that out along different technologies and things too, because each technology is a little bit different. So that was part of the application process is, how are you going to provide service to those locations and what speeds are you going to be able to provide to them?
Do you think the download versus upload speed changes has anything to do with like technology changing? Because like back in the day, you only really needed to download stuff.
Correct.
And now it's like everyone's a creator, everyone's an influencer, I'm on YouTube, so I mean we're all going to be on YouTube here next week anyways. So like,
right.
So we're gonna have to
upload speeds.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. If I'm sitting here and all I'm doing is downloading and watching YouTube videos, all I need to worry about is my download. But you as creators, and you need to upload those videos, you need that upload speed. If you're a gamer, you need the upload speed. As you use more and more cloud services that is out in the cloud, you have to have that upload speed.
The gamer thing just went right over my head. I didn't even think of that. That makes so much sense.
Did you know, and I wish I knew the exact statistics on it, the most watched videos on YouTube are gamers.
I can see that for sure.
People will watch other people playing video games.
It's so weird to me. I have never understood that type of why you would want to watch people play these games when you could actually play them yourself. But I guess that's the same reason why I don't understand the unboxing videos.
Yes. I will say, like, one of the most popular videos I ever uploaded on the internet was an unboxing video, as dumb as that sounds. But I'm not choosing what people watch. They're watching what they want to watch. And you're just here to provide the service to them so they can do that.
Exactly.
All right. So let's go to the next question here. So you get co-op run by a board of directors. The board of directors voted on by members. Is there like a big benefit to having a board of directors, or does your guys' board of directors like any different than like some like corporation that has a board of directors, or is it kind of the same concept but different because you're smaller? Or
it's very much the same concept where you have a group of people that are passionate about and concerned about the direction the company's going, and they want to the company to provide that specific service or quality of service. So each company is different though, because each cooperative can be different. You might have 5 board members, you might have 7. When I first started, way back when we had actually 17 board members on our cooperative, because each one of the towns had a board member.
Oh, okay.
So
and did you like split it up into districts then, and
we
just
did.
kind of okay?
Yep.
Do you have to have somebody from every district at least, kind of deal, or do you have like any sort of written things like that? Because I think I saw at least somebody from every district that was on there.
Well, so each district has several communities as part of that. And then we have 3 board members from that district.
Okay.
So that's how we get to the 9 board members that we currently have.
Nice.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
So it all kind of works out. And then I would assume that would differ from, I mean, in a corporate setting, you would have like the shareholders would vote on it, but the shareholders could be most like, so-and-so could own 50% of the company and they have half the votes, so they
Right.
could kind of change things a little bit. But here it's like everybody that uses the service. It's not like somebody has 50% of the hold over your co-op.
Right.
So
right.
maybe the voting's a little more fair in this situation than it might be in other situations.
So, and that's a good point too. So the way we're set up now, like I said, our original cooperative was 16 exchanges, and we have 3 districts there. So we have 9 board members that are making these decisions. Well, this board made a decision to go out into Calhoun County and add 4 more towns. They also made the decision that we're going to go into the rural area of Fort Dodge and add some more. At this time, those new customers are not members of the cooperative.
Okay.
And the reason they did that is because of the investment that we made into that. We want to make sure that we can recover some of that investment before they reevaluate and what kind of member they could make them. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. You can be a member that's allocated to but not a voting member, or
Okay.
there's just a lot of different options that the board could choose to do.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a little more difficult because, like, when you said it's like, oh, we're in Gowrie, we're in Summers, we're in, Kinerum or wherever. But, like, when you start to go to, like, well, we're in rural Fort Dodge, it's like, well, is that technically Fort Dodge? I mean, it's not really technically Fort Dodge. And it's like, so you don't have, like, a town,
Right.
even though you kind of are on the edge of a town. So you don't really have that kind of, like, a community type aspect there. So I'm sure you're going to have to find a way to slice that pie up a little bit.
Right. So when we do that, yeah, there's certain towns that it's like, oh yeah, Gowrie and Farnhamville, and those are the communities. It's like those are the communities. But if I say, oh, well, we're in Manson, in town, or we're in Lake City, in town, or Fort Dodge, just the rural area.
Just the rural area.
Just the rural.
So
there is sometimes where we're like, oh no, you need to go to this provider, or if you're in the city limits of Fort Dodge, no, you need to go to Fort Dodge Fiber. You need to, those types of things.
So you were talking earlier about grants. Is that something that you have to apply for? Or is that something, I would assume you would apply for a grant, but like, I didn't know if they were just like, hey, we've got this thing, you should take advantage of it, or like, how does that all, is it like a lot of work to go through and set up one of these grants, or like, to try to apply for one? Excuse me. No, you're not setting one up, but
Yep, there is. It starts basically with the legislature providing dollars for that. So that's, an important aspect of our company is to work with our local legislators and at the Capitol, both on the state level and the federal level.
Okay, yeah.
But it starts with them where they provide the dollars to be able to do that. And then they work through their government bodies to push that out. Like I said, it was, at that time, it was the OCIO that put out the applications and did the awards. And then once all the construction is done, then we will be working with the Treasury Department to get reimbursed for some of that we spent. So, for example, between the two grants that we got, it was like just over $3.9 million in grants that we got. But it's about $8 million that we're spending in doing this complete project.
Okay.
So we have to fund that ourselves, and when it's completed, then we can go back and get the dollars reimbursed to us.
Okay. Yeah. It's not a cheap undertaking we're going about here.
No,
but
it's not an easy one either.
We're talking miles and miles of fiber, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it doesn't happen overnight either.
No. Well, you were saying when you first started rolling out the fiber, it was a handful of communities at a time. You know, I'm sure that was probably for cost effectiveness, and also for you probably just didn't have the ability to hire however many hundreds of people it would have taken to install that if you wanted to do it in a year or something. So,
Exactly.
It's crazy because like this is something I guess like I thought about before you came on here, but now talking to you, it's the magnitude of it. Like I'm looking at a map of Webster County and seeing how much you cover, which is almost literally 3/4 of the county you guys are covering.
Right.
And the amount of cabling, fiber, wiring, everything you would have had to put in.
Well, even with the, outside of city limits type of people, that's got to be that definitely hard work to get all that done.
Yeah. And we have actually the construction company that we work with, Central Cable, came in. They've done all of our fiber work for us. We've got a big history with them right from the very beginning. And we know them, we trust them, we know what they're going to do. And so, they're able to come in, and I mean, that's what they do. So they're able to knock that stuff out. And I did look up some statistics on that. Our mainline fiber, and I call it mainline fiber throughout our whole network, we have 1,000 miles in the ground just of mainline. That's not counting what we call a drop, which is from that mainline to your house or to your house. Or, in the rural areas, it might be half-mile lane, Some of the acreages have a little longer driveways, but so that's just mainline fiber.
So,
Wow.
and that's like, those usually just kind of like run maybe parallel to the roads or something kind of like that, right?
Correct. We use the right of way.
Okay.
Along highways, along roads. Yep.
Yeah, but you still made a good point though. Like you have to go like a half mile with it. I mean, my house is like a half mile off the road almost, maybe quarter mile. So it's like,
Well, I just think about how far, like my hometown, our closest neighbor is a mile away. So, and that's literally the closest. Otherwise, we're like literally in the middle of nowhere. And I could not imagine. We don't have internet actually still to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
wow, that's crazy.
It's so hard to get to us. So
it sounds like
we
you'll be
just don't.
expanding south next.
Right.
Yeah, do you want to come to Anita, Iowa?
Speaking of the expansion, though, we did talk about expanding into Fort Dodge, into the rural areas. I guess there's got to be some telecommunications available in Fort Dodge. But what was the point of going to the rural areas? Did they not meet up to the rural areas, or is there just kind of like an open spot where you could have filled in the gaps a little better than they did? Or
so it kind of came back to that opportunity. You know, like I said, the state came out with a map and said, "Hey, here's some areas that are not up to speed.
Yeah, underserved maybe.
Yeah, they're underserved or unserved.
Oh, unserved.
Unserved would be less than the 25.3. Yep, and underserved I think was under, or maybe that was 10/1. It might have been 10/1.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and 25/3. There's been different thresholds as part of that, but they, through the state, all over the state, they picked some of these areas and said, here's an area that they're either unserved or underserved.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those opportunities presented themselves, then we went after that. So we were looking at places that were in close proximity to where we were. Mm-hmm. So by being right here in the backyard, Fort Dodge, we're able to pull some of our equipment from Badger and from Clare and from Moreland and Duncombe and use those facilities to fill in some of those areas.
I guess that makes sense. You're not going to go like 3 counties over and just start something in the middle of nowhere. You know,
Right,
you
right.
could, I guess, but again,
I have a good spot. You can test that out if you want to go a
Right.
couple counties over.
again, it comes down to cost effectiveness, feasibility. I mean, the co-op, your members are the customers, so it's not like it's just people who own stock in the company. So you kind of do have to appease them. That makes a lot of sense. So you basically, like, they gave you a map. You have to choose whether or not you want to go into this area, and they would reimburse you later after you put the investment in then.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So it's not like they were just like free money, shovel it out the door, giving it to you.
Right.
You had to do the work first on the front end, and then they would come back on the back end. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So it wasn't just like a nice, easy, all right, let's go. Let's do this. It's okay.
We have the money. Let's go do it.
Right.
I also have on here, what's your connection, like, do you have some connection with Fort Dodge Fiber, or what's their role as far as like you guys in Fort Dodge kind of meeting up somewhere? Like I'm sure you guys, again, this is the overlap question. Are you overlapping? Did you just decide we're going to all stop here and you stop here, or you just high-fived across the street, or what happened?
Yeah, it just kind of worked out that way because, we knew Fort Dodge Fiber was going to be focusing on the city limits of Fort Dodge. And so when that was available in the rural areas, we thought, well, perfect. We'll go after the rural areas. We don't need to double up technology. Like I said, it's kind of expensive to do. So we basically just, when we were engineering it, said, hey, let's look at this rural area from our limit to the Fort Dodge city limit and see what we can do. What's the cost on that? What's some of the funding that's available for that? And that's kind of the direction that we went. It's just, it's almost like a who gets there first approach, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, but then I think that comes back to like cost effectiveness. I mean, if it's more cost effective for you, you'll probably get there first, if they might just be like, we're going to put this on the back burner, and if we get to it, we'll get to it. And if nobody's there, we'll figure it out when we get there,
Right.
I'm just going to assume that a lot of the telecommunication companies, like, they don't necessarily want to overlap, even though they can. I mean, it happens like up in Humboldt, there was a little bit of that going on to an extent, right around the edges of town. But now it's not really as big of a deal as it used to be, because you used to have like 4 or 5 different choices there. They weren't all the greatest, but now, they're all kind of rolled into one, and they all use one major provider. But I guess I don't know really what the point was I was trying to make, but like, you guys don't do a whole lot of overlapping here.
Right.
Okay.
And like I said, the government wanted to encourage the competition because it's great for the customer. But if you get too much competition, then nobody wins. Nobody makes a profit, and
the customer might even suffer.
Right, exactly, because you're not going to continue to maintain that. I mean, the cooperative philosophy sounds great, but we're still in it to cover our costs.
Yes.
We got to be responsible with our members' money, and we need to go in, and it needs to make sense if we're going to go into an area. So, especially fiber, why would we build over another fiber company or us? Because, yeah, I
guess you're going to put the same input costs in, maybe only to get half or less than that of the money back, and they
Right.
okay.
Yep.
This is all making a lot of sense now. I mean, I did write a big long list of questions for this, and I was like, I feel like I have 100 questions, and I'm going to sound ignorant, but this is why we're asking the questions. It makes a whole lot of sense. It comes down to cost structure, and I guess maybe a lot of us just think of telecom, like telecommunications, just phone companies, internet companies, like, well, you guys make $1 zillion. Everyone's got the internet. You have no costs, like, but there is costs.
Right. Yes. It's the infrastructure.
It's
yeah.
maintaining, setting up, installing,
Yeah.
upgrading. I mean, it's nonstop. It's the way of the beast, I guess.
Yes.
Oh man, this has been such a good conversation. Let's see, we got a new website in the works, possibly. Is that something else we got going on? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, did we do the old website for you as well?
You did.
We did.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I think that was before all of us that work here now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
really?
going to look that up too. I can't remember if it was like 2015, 2016. It's been a while.
It's been a little while. Yeah.
So it's due for a little facelift and upgrade. And
Little makeup.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
So that was something I was going to talk about. The old website, or the website you currently have, it still looks fine. I mean, but like you said, it needs a little facelift. I will say, I've never really been one to be like, we need to make things look more modern or whatever. But it does. You were right. It does kind of have a little bit more of an old school feel to it. And I've seen kind of some of the stuff they're doing to it to upgrade it, to make it look a little, like you said, it's just facelift stuff, and it does look a little bit more modern. I like the way it's going to look now. Not that it looked bad. I could still found all the information I needed to.
Right. It's almost like, so you have a house, but you need an addition, and you just keep adding on to it and adding on to it. And then you kind of sit back and you go, okay, if I were the customer, can I find what I need to find on here?
Yeah.
That type of thing. So yeah, then it's like, I'm just going to move to a new house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Got the car, you keep doing repairs. Eventually, you're like, I'm just going to get a new
I'm
car.
just going to get a new one.
Yep. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Is Megan doing that?
That is Abby.
Abby's
Abby's doing it.
Nice.
Yes. She's been working pretty closely with you guys a lot for your guys' projects over the last couple of years, I believe. So, yeah, so she was definitely, she was the jumped on that for the website. So, yeah, she's been showing me periodically as you guys have been working on it, what it looks like. It's definitely it feels like a lot cleaner. I always say simplified, but not in like anybody could easily do it, but in like an easier to understand type of thing. Like, which is a big thing for, especially now that we're in 2024, almost 2025. It's really weird to say that we have 6 months left of this year.
Yeah.
We're halfway through, but
Wow.
but we're in that year that like it's simpler. Sometimes designing things in a simpler way that, it seems easy. It seems, again, simple, but it does take a lot of skill to do that. So,
And then even the thought process that goes into it, because for me, after working with the websites for a number of years, this is going to be our third or fourth version, I guess, but you start thinking about how do you maintain that? So, you have a page for this and you have a page for that, and you want to put as much information on there as you can, but it's like, okay, wait a minute, we got to back up and make this simple, because, okay, if we have a change in this product, I don't want to have to go to 15 pages and make that change.
or like even, and I've had this with some of our clients that, we don't need to overload a page with so much text because we want them to reach out to you.
Correct. Yes.
Because especially like, you have people that actually their job is to sell to people and to actually have those conversations with people. And if they can just easily pull off all the information, every single little bit of information off your website, then they're not getting that personal, like they're not actually contacting you. And especially with salespeople, that's a big thing. Because my brother-in-law is he's a salesperson, and he's always, let's talk about it.
Yes.
Because that's the point. I feel like you really sell somebody on it is to actually talk to them. And so like the same thing, it goes with the websites. If you overload the website too much, you're not getting that personal connection with them, which is important.
And everyone's experience or the way they're going to use it is different, and so you really have to have that conversation to say, well, okay, what speed do you need for your internet? What are you doing with it? How are you using it? You know, and a couple like me and my husband, empty nesters, you know, we have very different usage than say a family of, you know, 5 with kids that are in school and, you know, all the devices that go along with that. So yeah.
All right. So we're getting down to the end of this. I am going to skip down to the end of this. The last question we've got here for you. Name a time in your life where marketing has impacted you and you possibly didn't even realize it, which is the more I say this question out loud, I think it's kind of butts its own head because you would have had to have realized it. But
in order to say something.
Yeah.
But we were talking about something earlier today, like the food. There was let's just call it like a fast food thing. That's something I'd seen online, and I was just like, oh, that sounds good. I'm gonna go get that, and I didn't even realize that the marketing they did towards the thing just worked like instantaneously on me, and that was literally like a week ago. So
yeah. I'm the same way. That's probably the main thing I see. You know, you sit down and watch TV after supper or whatever, and you see these food commercials, and it's like, and I'm not even hungry, but I really want one of those, you know.
Ice cream. Gets me every time.
Agreed. You're right, though. You're like, I just ate casserole, and now I want, you know, Taco Bell or what. You know, I don't want to even name the name because but you get it. It's, gosh, that is definitely one for sure. Candy is another one that gets me. Not that I watch a lot of stuff with candy ads, but they happen because of what's pushed through my algorithms. But
well, one of the things too that kind of hit me as I'm working with sometimes social media and things like that, and when we're doing, whether it's a Facebook post or Instagram or something like that, where it was kind of that aha moment, I guess you could say, is by using our employees in our posts. So it's one thing to do an education or say, hey, we've got internet or we've got this. But when we show our employees, like I said, being local in parades or something like that, well, since we are local, everybody knows who they are. And then you start getting that engagement.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I like that. It's almost like you're using, because a co-op is the community and you're using the community to just basically advertise to itself once again. That's it's genius. It makes so much sense.
We're proud of our communities. We're proud of our employees, and you know, we want to show that that's going on, and then you get the friends and neighbors. In fact, it was the bulletin boards. We put up some billboards.
Okay.
And I warned the staff. I said, here's the picture I'm going to use. And they all kind of went, oh, my phone's going to blow up. They're like, people are going to see this. They're going to text me.
That's the point.
Yes. And so I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. I'm like, let me know, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we kind of laughed about that.
That's good. That's good. Oh, man. So I want to say thank you for coming down and sitting down talking about this. Is there anything that like we didn't cover? I think I covered most everything that was on the list. But if there's anything that you wanted to add.
Don't.
All right.
I think so. I think that covered a whole lot of it. So.
All right. Once again, this is Marcie Boerner, WCCTA. What was the other thing you said that was?
WebCal. Yes.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to write that down. But thank you very much for sitting down and talking with us today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital.
Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market.
Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.
That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026 or visit our website www.spinmarket.com.